Coming up on tonight's episode of Faith versus Culture, we are going to talk perseverance in the faith and so much more with singer Ann Wilson. Coming up next.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
There are problems of sin and habit that cannot be solved outside the person of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Faith versus Culture right here on the CBN News Channel. My name is Dan Andros. With me, as always, Trey Gons Phillips. Trey, what's going on?
Hey, man. How are you doing?
Good, good. Looking forward to our conversation with Ann Wilson. We'll bring her in now. Ann, how are you? Thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm so good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Our pleasure. And before we kind of get into your story a little bit and your career and the hit song you have out and everything else, all that exciting stuff that's going on, can we just get a little bit of your, we always like to, when we have a guest on, to kind of get a little bit of their backstory on their testimony and sort of how you came to faith.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home my whole life. My parents did a really good job at raising me in Jesus and being in the church. And I actually, like, my whole life didn't really know God. I just went to church because I was told to. And then when I was in 7th grade, that's when everything changed for me. And I met Jesus at my 7th grade year, my first day of school at 7th grade year. And we had a brand new Bible teacher come to the school for Bible class. And he just began to weep over the name of Jesus, and he couldn't say that name without crying. And I just remember everything kind of clicking in my head and connecting and realizing that I could have a personal relationship with Jesus, and that changed everything for me. So that was the day that I became a Christian and started following Jesus.
You know, for believers, every story is unique. You know, there's sometimes that people say, well, I just have a boring testimony, but every story is important, and every story, like I said, is unique. And you have a particularly unique story, and there are a lot of difficult pieces to it. Obviously, being the main thing being the passing of your brother, which kind of in a unique way actually ended up launching where you are now in music. Can you tell us a little bit about that, about losing your brother and how that impacted your faith journey?
Yeah, I mean, losing Jacob was changed everything for me. I gained a new perspective on life that I had never had. I realized like how short these years on earth are, and that heaven is the final destination. Heaven is where I want to work towards. I want to tell people about Jesus. I want to work as hard as I can to introduce Jesus to as many people as I can. And that's what really changed everything for me. Was losing my brother just made me realize that. And that's what led into music. Was I had this passion all of a sudden to tell the world about Jesus, and I didn't want anyone to have to experience a loss and know that their son or daughter or wife or husband or whoever didn't go to heaven. And I want people to know Jesus. So I was actually worshiping my piano about 3 or 4 days after my brother passed away. And my mom comes in the room, and I had never sang in front of anyone before at this point in my life. I was doing nothing to do with music. Like, I was pursuing wanting to be an astronaut and work for NASA, and had no passions in music at all. And my mom comes in and she's like, "Ann, we had no idea that you could sing." And I was like, "Mom, I don't know what this is. I don't sing. I am just worshiping Jesus right now." And she eventually asked me to sing at the funeral for my brother. And I decided that I would, and I felt called by the Lord. So I sang at my brother's funeral for the first time in front of anyone. And that was really the moment that I realized that God was calling me to music. God was calling me to spread his name, to spread his love around the world. And I didn't know what capacity that would be or what that would look like. But it's so amazing to look back and see how God used the tragedy of losing my brother to start something so incredible and change people's lives through my songs and my ministry.
That is incredible. I'm particularly hung up on this, that you had you even like tinkered with singing before? Like you'd never even really tried it? Did you have any hint that you knew you could sing at least a little bit? I mean, it's pretty clear early on, just trying to sing Happy Birthday at like one of my brother's parties, that I couldn't sing a lick. So that never entertained my mind. Had you had any inkling at all?
No, I actually thought I had a really bad voice when I was younger. I mean, I would sing in like church and stuff, and I would sing in the car, but I didn't sing in front of anyone. And I didn't even really think about like, oh, this is a career or this is something you can do. And also I was like I had very bad stage fright. So if I had like an event at school where I had to go speak in front of people or get on stage, it was like my least favorite thing in the world. So to think about doing that as like a career or something just did not feel like it. I mean, it's just something that I'd never even crossed my mind.
That is remarkable and amazing how God can turn something around like that. Like if you would have been putting down what's your career going to be, like you said, at NASA or something else when you were 13 or 14, and how God has completely flipped that around. It's pretty remarkable. And, we're talking a little bit about, in light of your story, Anne, about perseverance in the faith. And I'm particularly moved by you because when you're a teenager, things that happen to you that are even minor, like a girlfriend or a boyfriend or something like that, that relationship goes sour. Those things feel monumental.
Yeah.
The loss of a loved one is obviously exponentially greater than that. So, just walk us through your emotions a little bit and how you've been able to, you touched on it a little bit there, but how you've been able to not sort of follow the world in what they would kind of tell you to do in a scenario like this, which is just kind of be despair, maybe turn to drugs or alcohol and things of that nature. How were you able, in that moment to respond?
I think I kind of had this realization in my mind that I was going to either turn and be closer to God, or I was going to walk the other way and do all of it on my own and turn to alcohol or drugs or whatever else and just resent God for it. And I really had this moment of just realizing, like, my whole life, the only one that's ever gotten me through anything was Jesus. He's pulled me through dark seasons. He's given me hope in seasons of loss and so many different things. And I just realized, like, the only one that's going to get me through this tragedy is Jesus. And I chose to turn to him. And I think that definitely takes a lot of like trust, and choosing to trust God sometimes can be really hard. Choosing to trust the one, that's in control. And sometimes that can be difficult in this type of situation. But again, it's like I knew in my heart at the core of me that this was the right decision, to trust God, to not lean on my own understanding, and to let him walk me through this journey. And I can tell you that from the moment I said, Jesus, I trust you, and after losing my brother, everything made sense. God walked me on this journey. He provided for us. He, comforted our hearts. He gave us joy and hope and life and all these things that we didn't have, and brought us to where we are today as a family. And it's just been the most beautiful journey to watch how when you trust God, when you say yes to God, he's going to bless you for that. And he's not going to leave you. He's never going to walk away from you. And I've seen that firsthand. And so I would honestly just encourage others walking through loss and pain to do the exact same thing. As hard as it is, it's such a blessing to choose to trust God.
And, I think there's this misnomer that a lot of us have, that when we go to Jesus and we deal with something like a significant loss, that we go through this season and then it's over, that we don't have to deal with it anymore. But the reality is that, as you know, you revisit that over and over throughout your life. There are different sin struggles or different issues that we grieve throughout our lives. What daily rhythms maybe have you put in place that have been helpful to you in recentering yourself when you have moments of despair or when you have moments where you're struggling?
I think grief is one of the most confusing things ever, because it comes in waves, and so you can't predict it. You can't everything definitely doesn't just get better in the snap of a finger, and you don't ever get sad again. Like, losing a loved one is something that's a continuous journey. It's like every single day. There might be a day where I wake up just so brokenhearted and so sad, and I have to just allow myself to feel those feelings. And I think instead of pushing them away, instead of trying to distract myself, most of the time it's me kind of having to choose to just be sad that day and allow myself to just to reflect on Jacob, to reflect on our memories together. And then I think another thing is when you have, when you're walking through this grief cycle, is realizing that for me, it's like I know that I'm going to heaven. I know that I get to see Jacob again. So in moments of despair, definitely I just kind of like fix my attention back on, I'm going to see him again. I'm going to be with him again. And there's a reason that I'm still on this earth right now. And so I'm going to do whatever it takes to share Jesus with the rest of the world and just continue to do what God's calling me to do. And then again, like, I know I'm going to see him again. And so I think that's probably what gets me through those moments of despair more than anything, is knowing that I have a hope, and that's that I get to spend eternity with Jesus and my brother.
Well said, Ann. All right, we're gonna stop here and take a quick pause, but we're gonna be back. There's a lot more to talk about with Ann Wilson, and we'll do it on the other side of the break. This is Faith versus Culture. We'll be back in just a sec. All right, we are back on this episode of Faith versus Culture. Dan Andros here, Trey Goins Phillips there. Joined today by Ann Wilson. We're talking about perseverance in the faith in the midst of grief, pain, loss, trials. I mean, if there's one thing that we're guaranteed in life as Christians, is you're going to go through something. You're going to go through something that you don't like, something that's painful. You're going to lose a loved one. You're going to have a broken relationship. You'll be taken advantage. Just all these things happen in a broken, sinful world. That's the reality of it. And as Ann so nicely said last segment, talking about how we can choose to either lean into the truth of God's word and the truth of God's promises, or we can just fall into despair. And I think it's in Ann's case and others like her who have these prominent examples of things that have happened to them. Their testimony in these times is extremely powerful. And so that was one of the things I wanted to ask you, Ann, was just, have you had a lot of conversations with people who have had similar loss? And what are the sorts of things that they're saying to you about your song that you've created and your testimony that you're bringing?
Yeah, I mean, most of the testimonies that I receive from people are exactly that they lost a loved one. And my song, My Jesus, or one of my other songs, completely changed their life. And they, they let go of their anger towards God and they decided to trust the Lord. And that's one of my favorite things, is knowing that God is using my story of loss to impact other people and their stories of loss. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful picture to know that one little thing that happened in my life, which wasn't little, but in the grand scheme of things, the loss of a loved one, is changing other people's lives. And definitely have heard stories of like I just mentioned, we lost our child or whoever, 5-6 years ago, and now we finally, for the first time, are trusting God and we're not angry with him anymore. Or stories of, I got a story that someone had been addicted to drugs and they checked themselves into a rehab because of My Jesus, my song, and decided to just turn their lives around for the Lord and to follow him. And so it's so amazing to see how people have been impacted by this song and how their lives have been forever changed.
Yeah, and speaking of that song, the last time that we talked before this was actually at the K-Love Fan Awards in Nashville, where you took home 2 awards at the K-Love Awards. I want to ask, what was that like? Did you anticipate winning those? What has the journey to success been like for you?
Yeah, that was so amazing. I had no idea that I was going to win those 2 K-Love Fan Awards. I was shocked. I've only been an artist for a little over a year now. So to be in that place and just to see the love from all the fans and the people was so sweet and amazing. Honestly, this journey has been feels like a long one. It's been about 4.5 years of working, on music or working on my voice or, in some aspect of this. And it's been amazing. It's been so much fun. I've enjoyed every single second of it. And I think more than anything, I'm just grateful that I get to do this for the Lord. I wouldn't put in this work if it was for, the world or for my glory. And just getting to go on stage every night or be at the K-Love Fan Awards and, and just watch what God's done in my life. It's so amazing to see how God will use your yes and your trust in him to take you on the most beautiful journey. And that's really been my story. And it was so surreal winning those 2 awards. And I'm just so grateful and honored for all that God's done in my life.
Well, I want to ask you too, what is it like having not only won those awards and to have been successful in the Christian music genre, but actually this morning I just heard your song on a country radio station on Apple Music. So what is it like to know that your music is also having crossover appeal to some people who may not be believers?
That's really, really important to me. I feel like there's so much goodness in that I'm doing all that I'm like doing in Christian music, not trying to really cross over, but that God's using my songs to do that and impact more people for His glory. So I'm very honored, very, very honored that that the country space is picking it up, only because it's just reaching more people for the Lord, and I'm so grateful for how God's doing that. And I think it's so cool. Like, I grew up on country music and Christian music, and country music is like, I love it. It's my favorite. And so combining the sounds of country music with the lyrics and the concept of Christian music is honestly come so natural to me. And then I've heard so many stories of people that say, like, hey, we do not listen to Christian music, but because your song sounds country, we listen to your songs now, and we, met Jesus through your music, or whatever the case is. It's really cool to see my songs kind of crossing over into that area.
It sounds like you're kind of already in that zone, but when you hear that sort of thing from people who, you're reaching outside of the Christian circles, does that make you want to make maybe a song that's more tailored towards country music, but still has, a gospel message embedded in there, or be more kind of more overt like your last song was?
Yeah, I think definitely I'm open to sharing more in the country space, but always keeping the content about the Lord. Like, I don't want to ever become a country artist. I always want to stay in Christian music, but I think having a song or two that is able to fully really reach the country space and those people, but still have the heart of Jesus and the heart of the gospel in it, for sure.
Obviously the album that really has come out of My Jesus is a huge success. Also, it debuted at the top of the Billboard charts. I want to ask you, just out of curiosity, is there a favorite track that you have on that record?
Yeah, it goes between like 3 or 4 different ones, but as of today, it's a song called Closer to God. It's number 13 on the record, right before the My Jesus version with Crowder. And it honestly is just such a beautiful song. It just, the whole chorus is like, in every hour that felt too dark, and every moment, he felt far. Every time I felt like, you were gone, I was closer to God, and all these different, like, really deep spiritual lyrics of like being close, like the Lord being close to you in times of heartbreak and struggle and heartache. And I think, like, looking back on my life over the past 3 or 4 years, I've realized that in all of the deepest, darkest moments of pain, the deepest moments of pain, those are the moments that led me closer to God. And that's what the whole song is about. And it's just beautiful. And I love the lyrics and the heart behind it. And it's just such a testament to my walk with the Lord and my journey so far.
And we got a couple minutes left here. So I don't know if anyone has asked you this a bunch or not, but we talk a lot about you dealing with the loss of your brother. Can you, when we lose someone that we love, usually we like to talk and celebrate their life, right? Once, as we deal with the grief and everything else. Can you tell us a little bit about your brother and what he was like?
Yeah, Jacob was amazing. He was the life of a party. He was so much fun. He was so full of life, and he was just my best friend. Jacob was very adventurous, loved to hunt, loved to fish, loved to be outside, loved to, shoot guns on the farm and do all these, like, outdoor things. And he was just so amazing, and a really good big brother to look up to and to have in our lives.
All right. Well, Anne, we appreciate you stopping by and sharing your story, your testimony, and we wish you nothing but further success with your career. It's remarkable to see how God's been working in your life, and we appreciate you stopping by here for a few minutes to talk to us about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome back to this episode of Faith versus Culture here on the CBN News Channel. Dan Andros here, Trey Gons-Phillips there. Just got done talking to Ann Wilson, who is a new singer on the scene, and her backstory is remarkable. First of all, Trey, she talked about how she'd never sang, but I'm just blown away by that, how she'd never really sang before. Didn't even know she could really sing to that level, to where it would be a commercial success. And she performed that song at her brother's funeral, and then they decided to just record a video of it separately and put it on YouTube. And then that's how she got noticed. I mean, it's just unbelievable how God opened these doors.
Yeah, no, it is incredible. It's incredible to see how that's happened with several singers. Another singer, Katie Nicole, she's a Christian singer. Her song is called God of Possible, which has been really successful on Christian radio too, and she has a similar story in that she was just discovered actually on TikTok. So it's like in the age of COVID, but also in the digital age, where people are using social media more and more. And we've talked all about the different dangers of social media, but there's also a lot of benefits to it, and the ways that God has used social media and the internet to connect people, but also to further the gospel is incredible.
Yeah, and so then she had released this song, I guess last year, and then just the song, and then now there's an album out with it, and that's recently been released. So more good tracks you can expect from Ann, and I would expect that her career is just only going to continue to flourish from here.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something that we talked about a little bit toward the end of the last segment, which I thought is so incredible, is the fact that her music has such crossover appeal, because she already has a country sound, but it's cool to see that it's, potentially being heard by people who aren't believers, but maybe hearing My Jesus on their country radio station in their town might be just enough to spark some interest where they have conversations with their believing friends or family members. So I think that this her music can be used as a launching point to potentially discovering a relationship with Jesus, I think is incredible. And what an important and valuable ministry.
Yeah, and I'm just impressed by her willingness to trust God in the midst of this storm. And so it was really edifying to listen to her speak about that. So, all right, we'll be back to wrap it up for this episode of Faith versus Culture in just a sec. All right, that is all the time we have for this episode of Faith versus Culture. As always, thank you so much for watching. We will be praying for you as you go about your week. God bless. We'll see you next time.